Fantastic. Well, maybe a quick introduction. Thank you, everybody, for being on the call, and happy Friday. We have a fantastic presentation today. Our resident Excel expert, Kristen Monteleone, is going to take us through how to excel with excellence. I almost said Excel-lence. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to Kristen. This is going to be a fantastic presentation. Everybody should be on this call, but we are recording it and we'll send it out for those that miss it. So Kristen, take it away.
Hey, y'all. So as Kyle said, I have become a resident Excel expert, I think. And I'm a big fan of Excel and its cousin Google Sheets that we all tend to use quite a bit. They are a little bit different. So if you download this file, please make sure that you actually open it in Excel, because you might not be able to do everything in Google Sheets if you open it that way. But in any case, I would like to start with an agenda. So we're going to go over terminology and navigation. And as I said a little bit ago, these are truly the basics in this part. I'm hoping that everyone will get something out of this. I think that they will, but I just want to let you know that the beginning is just like making sure we're all oriented the same way. This is specifically geared to help you get your footing in Excel. So you could even teach yourself more after this, but so you'd understand what you're doing. There will also be a part 2 that will be advanced stuff, and I'll be taking requests for what people want to see in there. And I'm just going to start now with, like I said, the very basics. What is Excel? So Excel is a spreadsheet program which is used to store and organize data in a logical format. And a spreadsheet is made up of rows and columns. And when we're talking about a cell, we're talking about where a row and a column intersect. So all of the rows are numbered and all of the columns are lettered. And when you're referring to a specific cell in Excel, you can refer to it by the letter and number combination. So it's like the same way if you have read a map before. Nobody uses road maps anymore, but it'll have that same kind of setup. So A1 would be the first row and the first column. A range is a group of cells, and the notation for that is similar in that you use the first cell letter and number, and then the last cell letter and number. So the orange group there is A1 through D4, and that's a range, and ranges are identified with a colon in between them, and it's everything in between those two items. So if you're looking at an Excel workbook, each file is called a workbook, and then each tab is called a worksheet. So at the bottom there, you see all the tabs. Those are each a worksheet. At the top, there's a menu bar like there is in all Office programs. Some of them are ones you've seen before, probably like File and Home and Insert. They might have different options inside of them, but there are toolbars that are Excel specific that we'll talk about a little bit. Specifically, we're going to look at the formulas one, but there's also one called Data and one called Review that are specific to Excel. And then there's also some toolbars that only appear when something is highlighted. So the example on the right is in a pivot table. You can see that 2 toolbars appear when you click into it, one called Analyze and one called Design. And those are more options related to just that object. So the format toolbar we're going to talk about first, which I realize seems crazy to talk about formatting, but there's some stuff specific to Excel that can make it easier to use if you mess with formatting a little bit. So there's some things that are special I'd like to go over. One is the number format presets, and that's what the picture on the right is. It's also in this image right here. I should turn on the annotate thing right here. And then there is in the GIF, hold on, can I delete you? Make the GIF stop. Okay, so the other thing I want to show you guys is that conditional formatting, which is a really cool thing that exists in Excel. And basically you can choose different reasons to have a cell formatted a specific way. So like you could highlight a cell with a specific color, or make it like you can choose scales of colors for it to do. So the example that I'm showing you here is one that's really cool. It's for duplicate values, and it's one of the default ones. So if you highlight a whole row of, or a whole column of text and choose conditional formatting at the top on the home screen, and then you choose duplicate values, it'll by default highlight anything that's in that list more than once. So, oop. it stayed, the annotation stayed. Okay. So formatting multiple cells, if you select a whole column or row by, oops, now I'm stuck in that. If you format a whole column or row, if you want to format a whole column or row, you can click on its letter or number label, which is happening in the GIF to the left. So if you click on the top of it, it'll highlight everything below that. Resizing rows and columns can make a huge difference in how you're able to view data and how much data you're able to view. So that's really important. And I realize, again, this seems very basic, but it's important. So hover over the right border of a column or row, or like the bottom border of a row, until the pointer changes to the kind of like up and down thing with a cross. And if you double click, it will make it the width that you need for to fit everything that is in that column. That's my clue for this one. You can also drag that and make it a specific width. You can also right click and choose either column width or row height on any cell, and it'll adjust to whatever number you put in there, which is based on point size. The other thing that is on this area of the program is merge and center. And this allows you to combine adjacent cells. It makes it like, so if you need the same data in multiple places, which there's some of this on the advanced formulas tab that we'll get to later, it makes it so you can combine things, but I do recommend using it sparingly because it can make sorting more complicated and also make it harder to read your data, and you can't make pivot tables with it, which we'll talk about a little bit. So also going to talk about cut, copy, and paste, which again, seems basic, but there's different types of pasting in Excel, and it's important that you know what they are. So regular paste, for instance, just like the normal paste is, it includes the text, formulas, and formatting. You can then also paste formulas only or paste values only. So like if you wanted to copy data and make it the same, even though formulas calculated it, you could use paste values only. If you wanted to copy just the formulas and not the formatting, you could do paste formulas only. There's also a way to keep just the formatting. And then the other one I want to highlight there is transpose. So you can switch the rows and columns. So if you paste it that way, like if you had a vertical list in a column that you wanted horizontal across the top of a table, you could transpose it. There's also paste special, which you can get to at the top or by right clicking when you're pasting. And paste special allows you to do things like you can paste only formulas or values. But there are also things like you can paste an operation. So let's say that you have a list of positive numbers, and you want to make them negative. You can type a -1 in a cell and then copy that and then highlight the numbers that you want to make negative and then paste special multiply. So you'll like choose paste special and then choose multiply as the operation and hit OK, and it'll multiply everything by the value that you copied. So that's a great tool for that in particular, but also for any kind of thing where you need to like adjust for a specific value on all of your data. You can also insert cut cells. So if you cut everything from a column and you want to like switch where two columns are, you could cut the cells and then it'll automatically get rid of the area that you left and move things appropriately. So that's what's going on right here. And then I have a little bonus for you. You can insert rows and columns as well. So if you suddenly realize, oh no, I have 4 more rows of data that I need to put in, you highlight the number of rows you need to add, and then you'll right click and choose insert, and the rows will appear above your first selection. If you do the same thing with columns, they'll appear to the left. And again, you can select as many columns as you want, and it'll insert it either to the left or above the first column in your selection. So if you need to add 20 columns, you could highlight 20 columns and then right click, insert, and it will go right in. Also, I wanted to give you guys a huge hint, the shortcuts for copy, cut, and paste. So Control C is copy, Control X is cut, and Control V is paste. And those are really helpful when you're trying to quickly go between cells. So speaking of adding things quickly, the fill handle is something that is specific to Excel. It's the little green dot in the corner when you highlight a cell. And if you drag that down, it will either repeat the value that is in that cell, or it will continue a sequence if it can identify a sequence. So in the first column, you can see A, it repeated the letter A when I dragged it down. In the second column, B, if I highlight all 3 of the values that are in there, it'll highlight that repeating value. So like it'll highlight, it says ducks, ducks, geese again. And then in C, if I highlight both of them and drag it down, it detects that I'm only using odd numbers, and it'll continue that sequence of odd numbers only. For dates, it'll continue moving forward with dates as you drag them down. And then this is a really cool feature of it too. So I've just typed the sentence in the right-hand column, and when you in E, and when you drag it down, it'll automatically increase the first number there from 3 to 4 to 5, etc. But I can, when I do that, a little hint thing appears in the corner, and if I click that, I can choose other options. So one of them is to copy, and then perfect timing, copy cells right here. And then the other option is flash fill, and flash fill tries to detect a pattern, and you can see now it's using all different things. So we're going to talk more about flash fill, which is like my favorite thing in Excel. So flash fill, you can do the way I just showed you with by clicking flash fill from the thing, or you can hit Control E after entering data. But if you look at this, like I've typed a sentence, I've added like a bunch of different characters, but it's all from data in adjacent cells. So like it's using the number, the name, the estimated age and sex, and then it in a specific format. And when I hit Control E, it copies that format. It even added year old. It added the word bear just by having that information in the adjacent columns. So first, I'm going to tell you guys about what this data is really briefly. So this is Fat Bear Week 2022. Katmai National Park in Alaska does this thing every year where they take pictures before the beginning of the season where bears fatten up to hibernate and after. And then people get to vote and decide which fat bears are the best. And that is the data set that we were using as an example on this. So I'm going to play this video for y'all. So in this video, I'm going to show you first how to highlight data to include it in a filter. So you highlight everything you want to include, and anything you leave out won't be included in the filter. So I highlighted this, but I've left out that average at the bottom, and I'm going to click sort and filter at the top of the home toolbar. And then I'm going to click the funnel to filter. And what that does is add these little arrows at the top of each column. And that gives me options to filter or sort the data that I just selected. So let's say, for instance, I see a really cute unnamed bear, and I want to know more about the unnamed bears. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to type unnamed into the search bar. And it should let me see everything that falls under that category. And you can see it filtered it for me. So I'll hit OK. And now only the unnamed data will show. And now I can see that an unnamed bear was the champion in 2022 of Fat Bear Week. And I want to see who he was up against, but it's like really hard to see because of all the NAs. So I'm going to delete the NAs. I cleared that first filter. And I'm going to select only NA. And now I'm going to select all of that. And I hit delete, and it clears that out. And then I can clear the filter again by hitting the drop down and clicking clear filter. And now I can see that he beat 901 in the last round. And then let's say I see more cute bears and I want to figure out how well they did. So I'm going to highlight each of them as I go through and see how cute they are. And these are just like examples of how you could use this. It's not specific skills. So one of the things that's in the filter is filter by color. So now that I've highlighted those, I can select only the cells that are yellow. And now I can see the data associated with those ones. So again, to clear this, I'll click on it and then select clear filter. And now that I've seen, let's see. Oh, now I want to see, I saw one with fluffy ears, and I want to see if that characteristic is specific to any particular bear. So I type in the word ear, and I can see all the different ones that come up under ears. I can clear that. And then I can sort as well. So in addition to like filtering, I can change the order. So you can sort A to Z. You could also sort by number, so smallest to largest. The oldest bear is Otis. And then what if I only wanted to see some of them? I want to see all of them that are teenagers or older. So I can use number filters. I can choose greater than, I could choose less than, I could choose equal to. And I'm going to type in 15. And now it's only showing me the bears that are over 15. And again, I realize that was fast, but I'm just trying to show you ways this can be used, not necessarily. So remember on the first slide, I was talking about how Excel is a spreadsheet program used to store and organize data in a logical way. So logic is a big part of Excel. Formulas use logic to return a result. All formulas begin with an equal sign, and they are made up of different components. They don't have to have all of the components, but they are functions, operators, references, and constants. So it's a fork, I guess. The functions are predefined formulas. So it's something that like there is already been built by the developers of Excel to do a common function. So examples of these are sum or if or VLOOKUP. Operators are all of the different like math or logic symbols that are used to make determinations. So plus, minus, less than, greater than, equals, and then with two triangles together, like the greater than and less than together is not equals to in Excel. References are notations identifying a cell or a range. So like this is why like knowing that how that works is important. So if you wanted the data in cell A1 to be in your equation, or even just that information to be in another cell, you can have that, you can put equals and then A1 and it'll show up. You can do the same thing with ranges, and you can do the same thing on different tabs, even within the same worksheet. And the way the notation for that works is the name in single quotes with an exclamation point. But we'll talk about that in a second. Constants are like hard numbers or text. So you type the number 10. Another constant would be true or false, which is like a condition, or text inside double quotes is a constant. So I have another clue for you. You don't have to type references. You don't have to learn what the notation is for that. You can go to the cells that you want to be attached to. So you can go say, I want this average age to be on another tab. I can go and click, and you can see that it created the cell reference for me to the other tab. And now that is appearing on the other tab. This is really important because I really want to stress how great cell references are. Helps prevent errors. You're not typing numbers from one cell to another. You're not like trying to look at data back and forth. And it helps you show your work. So if you wanted to calculate a bunch of stuff on one sheet and then just have summary of that, or use that to do something else on another sheet, using cell references makes it so that someone else can see how you got there. They can click in and look at the formula. So I think this is a really important skill to know. So the way formulas work, it's like I said, they start with an equal sign. And then the one on the left is like a really basic formula. So it's using a reference and a constant. So the reference is cell B1, and the constant is the number 6 in this particular case. And I'm using the operator, a plus sign, to get to the result, which is 8. I can get the same result with a function, which is sum, and it has a leading equal sign. It has the function name, and then when you use a function, you use parentheses to include the references and constants that you want to be included in the function, or other components like the little clauses in there. We'll get to that. But so you can see both of these end up with the same result right now. So you get 8 in both cases. Well, why would you want to use the sum formula when the formula on the left seems like it works really well? Well, let's see. So sometimes there will be things that will break your formulas. So this is the simple formula on the top, the value, and I want to see what happened here. So I can click formulas at the top and then go to evaluate formula and click evaluate, and it'll show me what part of the formula is broken. Well, it's trying to add a word to a number, and that doesn't work. So it brought me to the value error. No, I don't want to go to the advanced formulas. There you go. Okay, so the different types of errors there are value, name, NA, divide by 0, or reference. And there are different ways to avoid those. One of them is using functions that already have those built into them, which is what sum is. Sum knows not to try to add words, but just using a plus sign isn't quote unquote smart enough to get that. And that'll give you a value error. Value is when like you try to add things that aren't numbers basically, or you try to do math with things that aren't numbers. Name is when you type the function name incorrectly. So if you typed sun, S-U-N instead of sum, it would give you the name thing. NA is when it doesn't return a result. Like the formula works, but there's no result. The divide by zero error is because you can't divide by zero. And then ref is usually that the cell that you're trying to reference doesn't exist. Evaluate formulas allows you to figure out what part of the formula is going wrong. So that's why you would go to do that again, you navigate to the formulas toolbar up here. And then you would select evaluate formula, which is right about here. And that'll allow you to, okay, then it'll allow you to figure out exactly what's wrong. And like maybe in this particular case, it's not particularly complicated to figure that out. But when you start writing more complex formulas, it's a really useful tool. So you already saw my cool animation, but advanced formulas. We're going to talk about a couple of formulas that are a little bit more advanced. So they introduce some other ideas about how formulas work. So I'm going to talk about the if error formula. So in this case where we have this broken formula because the word bear is there, if we add the if error formula, so if error is the function, and then the formula with the desired result is the first thing that goes after the parentheses, and then the comma, and then the second thing is going to be the alternate result. So if, say, you wanted to have it say hibernate, if there is the word bear there, you could do that by putting hibernate in quotes as the desired alternate result. So this introduces a really important idea, which is if. If is like is a logic formula that's used in programming as well, obviously, but it is super helpful. The concept is like translates into a lot of different functions in Excel, but if just the way the structure of if is, if one thing is true, then this, if it is false, then that. So it's essentially the same thing. If errors is just already guessing that you know that if it's an error that you want this other result. But you could do it differently too. I could have it say, if this cell does not equal the word bear, then do B1 plus 6. If it does equal bear, then I want it to say hibernate. So it's the format is logical expression, so it's going to have a logic symbol in it, or like an implied logic symbol. So if you just put a single character, like if you put a 6 in there, it knows that that's equals 6. And then the first after that is the value if the expression is true, and then the value if the expression is false. So now these are the two most advanced formulas we're going to go over today: count ifs and sum ifs. So both of these are super powerful formulas for the kind of work that we do. If you want to try to figure out how many of something we did or how much impact we have had, count ifs and sum ifs are definitely the ones you want to use. So they work really similarly to the if function in that it's if this thing is this, then that. So count ifs and sum ifs with an S are the formulas that I prefer. They both have a singular format. Sum if in particular is deficient in its ability to be translated into larger data sets, and then also they can both cause rework if you need to go back and add an additional condition. So I would recommend not doing that. So we're just going to talk about count ifs and sum ifs. So count ifs counts values if a range meets criteria that you designate. So the way there's the function, and then the first range that will be counted and contain the first criteria. So I'm looking in columns B2 through B13 to see if the first criteria, the word unnamed, is there. And then I want to count how many are there, but only if the values in range D2 to D13 contain the second criteria, which is female. So I want to know how many unnamed female bears there are. And that's what's going on over here. And it's showing, this is actually referencing another tab, and it's showing you that it's 3. Sum ifs works really similarly. except for the first part is the range of values that will be summed. So I want to add up all the values in range C2 to C13 if the following conditions are met. So if B2 to B13, the range, contains the criteria unnamed, the second range of values, then I also want to make sure that I have the word female in. So the first one, I'm trying to count how many times these things appear. And then since there are numbers in here, I want the total number. So I'm adding it all up. And that seems like it might not make sense, but I'm adding up ages here, right? So I'm counting how many unnamed female bears there are. And then I want to know what the average age of those female bears are, but I'm summing it. So bonus, the reason I did this is that basically I can divide SUMIF by COUNTIF to get the average of those things that have the same criteria. I can also type those whole formulas in the cell. So I could type the entire SUMIF formula, the division symbol, the operator, and then type the whole COUNTIF formula and get the same result. So I think it's really important that you know that formulas can work together, and you don't have to do the work separately for each one. So you can nest formulas and you can combine them. And they can get very long if you look in specific spreadsheets that we use. And then I'm going to talk to you guys about pivot tables. So pivot tables are a tool to help organize, analyze, and summarize large amounts of data. It presents data in a more user-friendly format. It groups categories and subcategories of data together and allows users to drill down into data to recognize patterns. So basically, instead of giving someone a spreadsheet that has 1,800 lines of data on it, you can consolidate it into everything in this category equals this, and you can look at different factors impacting results. So pivot tables are one of Excel's most powerful tools and potentially most complicated. So we're only going to go over the very basics of them today, just the idea of them and like why you might use them. I just want to, again, this is giving the tools to try to explore this yourself. So pivot tables can only be created from data already arranged into a table format with labels on the top of each column. If each column isn't labeled, it's going to yell at you and tell you you can't do it. And a fun fact for you guys, the time allocation guide that is sent out to staff before each pay period is a really, really fancy pivot table. When you select your name from the table on the left, it is actually just a pivot table you're selecting it from. So I'm going to show you guys this. So to create a pivot table, I'm going to, the same way I highlighted stuff for sort and filter, I'm going to highlight just the data I want to include, and then I'm going to go to insert. And then I'm going to choose pivot table. And then I'm going to decide where I want the table. You can either do it in a new worksheet that'll make a new one, or you can choose an existing location. So I'm going to put it in this cell, and I can go, again, cell references, I can just click it and then hit enter and OK, and it'll create the pivot table for me. So it's, again, the instructions are here. It's really important. I wanted to make sure you guys know how to do this. So, and the reason that I created the pivot table in cell A3 as opposed to A1 is that if you use the filter portion of this, it's going to put it above it and it'll move your data. So it's better to have the space. And then we're not going to talk about columns today. Columns auto-populates with the values that you choose in this particular format. And filters are just a limit to the data that's included. So what we're really going to focus on is rows and values. Those are the two things that have to be in every pivot table for it to be a table. And they're the way that you want to look at the data. So the rows determine which field the values will describe. So in this particular instance, basically, like my idea for this table is I wanted to figure out why some bears were unnamed. And I had a couple of guesses of why that could be. And one of them was disposition. So I want to look at the disposition of unnamed bears to see if that's the reason that they are unnamed. So maybe they're mean. The other idea I had is maybe that they are they're young and they haven't been named yet. So I'm in the values column, I'm going to determine what data is to be compiled. So that can be, this field can be arranged as a sum, a count, an average, and there are a lot of other things as well that it can do. But in this particular thing, I want to see what the average age is and what the count of bears is. I want to know how many bears of what age there are, or how many bears of what disposition there are, and the average age of those bears. So help me see if these are the reasons why those bears are unnamed. So I'm going to go to this video here and show y'all. So, yeah. So I'm going to go over on the right over here once I've in the pivot table, and the pivot table fields will automatically show up on the right. And I said before, I'm going to choose disposition as the rows because that's the item I want to learn more about. And I just drag it into that. And it's going to show me all of the disposition items. And then if I scroll, I can find any of the items that were on that table, and I'm going to use estimated age over on the right. And it's automatically going to populate a sum, which is not useful for me. So I'm going to click on that, and then click value field settings. And I'm going to change it to average. And now I know I'm dividing, so it's going to give me a bunch of remainder numbers. So I'm going to click number format, and then I can change it to any number format as well. So I'm just going to get rid of the decimal places so I can get whole numbers. I'll hit OK. And now it's showing the average of estimated age, and it's not showing me any fractional numbers. So I'm going to use that same for count. You can use pretty much any field that has anything in it. But I'll just use the same one since I know that worked. And I'll go to value field settings again, and I'll change it from sum to count. And now this is showing data for all of the bears. And I want to change that to just the unnamed bears. So I can go to bear name, and I will drag that to filters. And then I can choose from this, either I can select multiple items, or I can choose just the one item, which in this case, I'm just using one. So I'll click unnamed. And then based on this, I can see that I was probably right. It's either really cute, playful bears that haven't been named yet, little babies, or it's really big, mean, horrible bears that no one wants to get near and refuses to name because they're enormous and scary. So that's kind of how you would use a pivot table. And that's it. So I'm going to take questions, but also I want to take requests for part 2. This was just to orient everyone and give everyone the basics. One request I know I've had is Gantt charts, and we'll definitely go over that. The other thing I'm going to go over is probably VLOOKUP, which is a really powerful formula that's used frequently. But does anybody have any questions? No?
Are there any Easter eggs in Excel that we should know about?
Easter eggs?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean?
Easter, it's like a programmer thing.
Not that I know of. I don't know of anything.
Fair.
I don't know.
I meant to research that.
Is there anything that anybody else?
Christian, what's your favorite formula?
What's my favorite formula? Probably if. I use it a lot. I nest a lot of it, if formulas. Yeah, and I also, like, Angela, I see what you're saying. I agree, you should test it out. Use that sheet. Like, everything that we went over is in that sheet. I left all the formulas in and stuff. I left the pivot table. Try to do the things in this, and then we can I can take any questions you have. Oh my God, are you serious? Should I look for it?
I think maybe for part 2.
For part 2?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. What is in Office? There isn't even a thing for Office 2016. Is there?
I don't know. You did mention the part 2 is going to be like the master class.
Yes.
Yeah, excellent.
Cool.
Very good.
I'm going to give you guys time back because nobody has questions.
I have a question. This is Pauline.
Yeah, Pauline, what's up?
It's a basic question, but I always have problem doing that. How do you input numbers, phone numbers that have area codes and country codes? They always
like
come
phone
out, yeah,
numbers?
phone numbers.
Okay, so you could, let me start a new tab for you. So That's when you would use this like number formatting thing. There isn't one for that, but like, let's say you wanted to use like, so let's say it's like,
Let me give you a number.
yeah, give me a number.
231
Uh-huh.
886 637789.
637789. And then, so are the first two numbers?
You see, that's it.
Yeah, okay. So first of all, there are a couple of things that will help with this. One, if you use the trick I was saying before, so if you hover over this and the right-hand side becomes this like weird black plus sign thing, and you double click, it'll make it wider, or it should. But it also just like the general thing doesn't always turn off. You can change it to number and it'll automatically change it to a number. You can get rid of the decimal places below that by clicking decrease decimal. And then if you wanted to always make it look the same, so what part of this is what?
231 is the country code.
Okay, 231 is a country code. So you could do like, you could make a custom format. So if you go to number, and then you could go to, I clicked this little thing in the bottom right here, number. You click custom. So like there are a bunch of different ones, but like you could type it as you would like it. So it's more complicated than like just this, but like if you do plus and then like, and then a space. So then it's like formatting it with the country code in front
I
of it.
see.
Yeah. So
That's fire.
there's like a ton of ways you can do that. You can format anything like the way you want it to show up. So if there's like a specific format that you want to keep for that, so like obviously you don't have to do like, you could add dashes as is appropriate to the country and stuff like that. But any other questions? Also, seriously, we have 20 more minutes and you have me. Do you guys need, what do you want to know?
You do more on like linking to pull from sheets that are outside of your workbook.
Oh yeah, so I didn't actually even do anything from that, but
Yeah.
what Brian is talking about is that in addition to like picking from a different worksheet inside a workbook, you actually can link to a completely separate workbook. And I actually recommend, so the two things you need to know for that is both sheets need to be open for it to work correctly most of the time. And that the way that I usually do it, because it's such a pain to type the whole thing, is I just click the cells. Like I definitely do it the way that I showed you guys, but like so like, let me find something else to open. I don't have anything good to open. I'll just start a new one. So it has to be saved also. That's the other thing. So here's another, so I'm gonna save it. So let's see, I'm just gonna say sample. So I can type a number in here, or I could type a word. And then if I wanted that to show up over on here, I would just, I didn't want to actually minimize it. Where did it go? Oh, it's over here. It's stuck on my other screen. I blame you for this, Brian. It's like literally stuck. Hold on. It's like my screen is set to like an unusual dimension to make it bigger. I like cannot get it. There you go. Okay. All right, there it is. So let's say on this one, I wanted to like this, whatever's in this cell to be here. So you can literally type equals and then do this and just like click over here. And so the notation is like the name of the sheet in brackets, and then like the sheet name stays the same, but you'd have to identify the sheet name, and I can hit enter and it'll show up. So if let's say I'm going to save both of these. So if I close this, it should be okay if the data has been saved. But like when I open this again, if it hasn't been, I should just open the other sheet.
And so if that cell changes in the other sheet, then it'll change in this sheet.
If you save it. So if I type this to different example.
That's weird.
Yeah. So Mike, I use actually the sheet that we use to go over the AmeriCorps projections has a lot of that, so that salary information isn't in it. So
Wow,
there's a lot of linking in that.
that's crazy. Thanks for showing us that.
Yeah, and that's something then, yeah, that's like if you wanted to show someone a limited amount of data, that's a way that you can do it.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
Any other questions? Any other specific problems people have or want to look at?
Pretty much everything you can do in Excel, you can do in Sheets, right?
So-
It's just like different.
So yes, they're different. So
Yeah.
I actually really like Sheets. I know a lot of people don't, but Sheets actually incorporates a lot of SQL, which you can do in Excel as well, but it's like a programming language. So a lot of the stuff that I do in Sheets, when I send you guys stuff in Sheets, cannot be done in Excel. And like vice versa, there's like there are formulas in Excel that don't exist in Sheets. That's why like the allocation guide, for instance, tells you to download it and open it in Excel because it does not work correctly in Sheets. Pivot tables don't tend to translate well, and there are some formulas that are the syntax is like slightly different that make it do horrible things. Also, formatting tends to not translate well. Yeah. But they are very similar and like definitely worth learning both. Sheets is usually not like people who use Excel professionally, like finance people. A lot of times don't like Sheets, but a lot of programmers and stuff really like Sheets because you can incorporate other things.
Is the linking function pretty similar? Like you can copy it over
No.
the same way?
Oh my God, no.
Yeah,
That's a
that's what I
thing
was
that
worried
Excel
about.
has like Sheets super beat on. So
Okay.
like Sheets cannot link to external workbooks. So like you can't link two Google Sheets together. You can use an import range formula to dump the data in.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah. So then you have it, and then you can reference it like one other thing, which is, there's a lot of that that happens in our
That's
Google
that.
Sheets.
Yeah, okay. That's that import range formula that you set up with like, yeah, okay. I know that one.
It's on the construction for
Yeah.
construction and financials. Any other questions? No? Well, then you guys can have 15 minutes back. And I appreciate your attention and your time. And please do send me requests for part 2. Kyle scheduled it in my calendar already for about a month from now. New Orleans asked for a Gantt chart tutorial. I want to show you guys VLOOKUPs. But I'm probably have room for like 2 or 3 more things in there. And that will be like advanced. So we'll talk about like what makes up the different things, and there'll be like a tab and a sheet for each of them.
Nice. Awesome. Well, Kristen, thank you so much for your investment in putting this presentation together. Super awesome. Thank y'all. Yeah, thanks. This was great from Jasmine. Agreed. Thank y'all for attending. I'm going to, of course, send the video link out for future reference and for anybody who wasn't able to make this call, and wish y'all a very happy and safe weekend.
Thank you. Happy 4th.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks.
Excel.